Are you worried about your tech career? Have you been asking yourself, what's going on in the industry with this job market? What's going on in America? It's crazy. Well, you're not alone. Many people have basically said this is the worst market they have ever seen, and they're trying to figure out, well, what now? What comes next? How do I get ahead in this market? How do I find a new job? That's what this episode is all about. I'm Larry Cornett, and this is Invincible Career. So, if you do work in tech, how will you survive in tech this year? This is issue 663. If you go to newsletter.invinciblecareer.com, it's manifesting in many ways. Some people are struggling to find a new job in tech. Some people are struggling in their job because things seem to have changed. It's a lot of reasons things have changed. Obviously, the influence of AI, we've been talking about that a lot. But the U.S. economy is not good, and so it's been affecting many, many companies. They've been doing layoffs and cutting back on hiring, reducing budgets. And so people are afraid to push hard at work. They're afraid to try to get promoted. If they push too hard, they might get put on a layoff list. And they've been somewhat disappointed by the behavior of the people at the top. I've been hearing that as well. So if you are struggling to find a new job in tech, or if you're wondering, how do I survive this? You need to look outside the bubble. And I've been telling my coaching clients this for years. This is not new advice, but it might be new to you. But as the core of the Silicon Valley tech industry, which is the center, obviously, as that swirls in chaos and uncertainty and, to be honest, a little bit of darkness, you need to move to the periphery, get outside that bubble, and explore healthier industries that are still doing pretty well, and some of them are growing, and other geographies, both industries and geographies that need your valuable expertise. And I have a quote from Anil Dash. He said, "So much opportunity, inspiration, creativity, and possibility lies in applying the skills and experience that you may have from technological disciplines in other realms and industries that are often far less advanced in their deployment of technologies." So Anil wrote a great article just a week or two ago, and basically said, how the hell are you supposed to have a career in tech in 2026? Which kind of drove me to write this newsletter and record this podcast episode. And he is somebody who's been in tech for a long time and writes a lot, blogs a lot, gets interviewed a lot. He gets asked a lot of questions about what's happening right now in the tech industry. And people are like, well, what are we supposed to do now? Like, there have been so many layoffs. I mean, I think hundreds of thousands of layoffs. Definitely some age discrimination. And so, as you know, I've worked with a lot of folks who are towards, kind of the upper end of their careers, I'd say 40s, 50s, and they are working extra hard to find something. They're just really struggling to get hired right now. And so there are lots of really talented, really experienced people who are wondering, is it me? Is something wrong with me? Why is it so hard for me to find opportunities now? Why are people not pursuing me? Why do I have so many applications that I just get ghosted? Why am I struggling to find a job? And it's been 6 months, it's been a year. And it's not just you. You would think that with all this investment in AI and robotics and automation that this would be the golden age of tech. But sadly, that's kind of not what's happening for the employees for sure. The people who are on the forefront of it are doing pretty well. There are a handful of companies that are exchanging billions of dollars, and those people are all becoming quite wealthy and successful. But what's happening for people that are outside that core, that center, well, tons of people have been laid off and they've been saying, hey, we can automate your job, or we just need one person who's using these AI fueled systems to replace the work of 10, right? And that is happening with design, with engineering, with writing. We're seeing a lot of that. We're seeing companies using AI to completely generate all of the video for their ad campaigns and no longer hiring, the large numbers of creative people that used to do that kind of work. And so it is also kind of concerning what's happening with the political climate in the US. And we are seeing that tech, which used to be at the forefront of a lot of things that we thought were good, trying to level the playing field for everyone and create economic opportunity for more people. I mean, it was a big thing that eBay believed in when I worked there. But instead, they are not. They're doing some pretty terrible things. And we are seeing technology being abused so that it can be used to monitor citizens and do data mining and do all kinds of things that make us a little upset. And so I am hearing this as well. I am hearing individuals who work at companies they used to believe in and for leaders they used to respect, losing respect for those people. No longer feeling good about working at these companies and having conversations with people where they're kind of embarrassed to say where they work. I've seen this firsthand. I've seen people who are working for either large AI companies or ones that are more in the fringe, running into people who are like, oh, I see. So you are the ones who are stealing work from creative folks, stealing their art, stealing their music without compensation, without paying them. You're the ones who are building these data centers that are stripping resources from our lands, and we are jeopardizing our water supply. All kinds of stuff is happening. So it's touchy. It's a bit of a powder keg right now. And so I want people to feel like there's a bit of hope, right? So you can just put your head down and try to survive this if you have a job already. And no one would blame you for that. That's exactly what's happening, is that the people who have jobs are putting their heads down, trying to not get on a layoff list, not rocking the boat, and just trying to ride this to the other side. Because we do see cycles of this kind of stuff. I was around for the dot-com crash, and we thought that this might be it, that tech might not recover, that a lot of stuff that was outside the core was seen as frivolous and wasn't really a smart use of the internet. And so those companies vanished, right? They went bankrupt. A lot of jobs disappeared. A lot of people left Silicon Valley. I was one of the few that stuck around. And we came back. The industry bounced back. And so you can ride to the other side of this. Just do your work. Try not to upset your boss and try to get to the other side. And hopefully things start looking better. But if you are not in that kind of situation, so either you've been laid off or perhaps you quit because you got fed up with some of the things that are happening, or you want to quit. And I'm talking with people like that too. They're like, you know what, I've had it. I'm kind of tired of working for this company that's doing some pretty terrible things and watching my CEO do pretty terrible things. And so their moral compass is kind of upset, and they want to regain their belief in themselves and feel good about their work. And so they're going to quit. So the thing that I would start with is look at industries that are outside of traditional tech. We often want to stay in the core of the tech industry, and that is a good place to be when things are good. Being in the heart of Silicon Valley when things were booming, sure, fantastic. Being in the right place at the right time, if you're at NVIDIA and rode that rocket ship, or if you are at OpenAI, Anthropic, yeah, things are pretty good. It was a good time to be there in the heart of it and secure a job. I was really glad that I was in the heart of Silicon Valley and had jobs at IBM and Apple, eBay, Yahoo, places like that. I think a lot of people want to stick with that. I often get approached by people like, I want a job at one of the top companies, at a FANG or OpenAI or whatever. Those are the most coveted roles, and they are the ones that are going to be the most challenging to get a foot in the door if you don't have a really great network that can help you with that. I think trying to do that now is really not a recipe for success. I know people who have been out of work for almost 2 years now. So, and these are very experienced people with great reputation, pretty great title, and they are struggling. They're really struggling. But the reality is the world has changed and it has advanced. So there's a saying, I wish I could remember off the top of my head who said this, but basically that every company is going to be a tech company in the future. And it's kind of true. Even the smallest companies, and I mean tiny mom and pop shops now, are using technology. They're accepting digital payments. You'll often go in and you can pay with Tap Pay. You can use Stripe. They have websites for their business. They may even have some basic e-commerce going on. So every industry has been adopting technology and using software and using cloud services, and now everybody's using AI. And so they need people with tech experience. This is in the educational space. Some of it ed tech, some of it pure education, right? Universities. Heck, even some of the bigger high schools. But definitely universities. Healthcare, definitely seeing it. There's health tech, but there's also just healthcare. The hospitals and so forth, using tons of technology and software. The retail space, finance, fintech, banking, insurance, insurtech. Basically, any company of a decent size that has an online presence, that leverages software, some of it that they want to modify, some of it they may want to write themselves as they're learning what they really need, has an e-commerce presence, and who doesn't now, right? All of that requires people with tech skills. They need designers. They need engineers. They need data scientists and data analysts. They need people who understand this space, right? These companies are not at the bleeding edge. They are not at the bleeding edge of tech adoption like you see with Silicon Valley tech companies, right? They are often a few years behind. My brother is a surgeon, and he's like, you wouldn't believe how bad our software is. He's like, gosh, what an opportunity to improve that software. And I see this too. I see a lot of these companies using technology that's several years old, not wanting to adopt the newer technology. They're nervous about it because it could break everything, not knowing how to do it, not sure what is the right thing to do in terms of migrating to new platforms and you name it, right? So as such, these companies in these industries, they really appreciate people who have experience in the hardcore tech world. And when you work with them, and I've done this as an employee, we would go in and talk with companies, basically, selling them our software, our hardware, and trying to figure out how to integrate it into their systems and train their people. I also did it often as a consultant. I worked with a lot of companies that needed tech and were embracing tech, but they were not hardcore tech companies themselves. It's almost as if they see you as someone coming to them from the future. And that is definitely the case when you are that familiar and you've been working at the bleeding edge of this technology, creating the technology, that when you're working with a company that is a few years behind in the cycle, it is like you're coming from the future. You know these things that are coming, you know how it works, you know the trends, you understand where things are useful, where maybe it's not, maybe it's a fad. So you can be super helpful for them. And it's funny, I started looking around, trying to explore just some traditional companies. Some that I know and use and some that I enjoy. And I said, I bet they're hiring tech people now. Even though you wouldn't think of them as needing tech employees. And they are. They absolutely are. I have a chainsaw that's made by Husqvarna. That's actually a Swedish company. So they manufacture all kinds of outdoor products, right? The chainsaws and lawnmowers, trimmers, brush cutters, tractors. They're also getting into construction. It's a massive company. It's a massive corporation with a presence globally. So they have their headquarters in Sweden, but they have offices all over the world. They're being sold all over the world. They have an online presence. You can go online and shop and buy stuff, like new chains for the chainsaw. I've done that. So they started, I think they were founded in 1689. So it's one of the oldest continuously running companies in the world. And guess what? Now they have tech and they need tech. So I was poking around and they have their typical jobs and retail jobs and stuff in manufacturing and you name it. But they also have open roles for people in sales and product management, engineering, IT, you name it. Somebody's running all of their websites, their e-commerce, and as they're becoming more digital and using more software, it's becoming quite techy because they are moving into all kinds of battery technologies and automated stuff for lawnmowers, you name it. So it's kind of cool. And that is not probably a company you would think of if you're a tech person. You wouldn't be thinking, I'm going to get a job with Husqvarna. That's just one of millions of companies that are out there. Trader Joe's. I'm sure you've shopped at Trader Joe's at some point in your life, and maybe you do it weekly. I just saw they're looking for a learning and development specialist. IKEA. IKEA is investing considerably in the online space. They got hit pretty hard by COVID. So, all the reduced sales when people weren't coming to the stores. And so they shifted to a lot of online shopping and investing in that. They're looking for engineers. They love data analysts and data scientists. They're looking for marketing specialists. So it's a massive company, again, not a U.S. company, that's looking for tech people. REI, which I'm a fan of. I like REI. Love going there and shopping, even if I'm not going to buy anything. It's so much fun to browse. They're looking for IT managers. They're looking for a membership strategist, you name it. So it's not just the physical commerce. It's not just their stores or the people who are actually working on the hardware and clothing and stuff like that. And I mentioned universities. So yeah, there's ed tech. Definitely you could look at that. But straight up universities, my old undergraduate college, University of Nebraska Lincoln, UNL, they want to hire a web designer. So guess what? There's a lot of online stuff, online courses, websites. Somebody's designing that, somebody's building it. So I'm sure they hire engineers, they hire designers, you name it, IT people. One of my friends who I used to work with has been the manager of user experience and design operations for almost 10 years at Stanford University. And he's a manager, so he has a team. So if you're looking because you've been out of work or you need a new job, or you are really kind of fed up with what's happening in the core tech industry, get outside that bubble. Look at these industries that you would never think of and just poke around. Find companies that you respect, companies that you recognize and admire. Look for companies based in countries that you respect and admire, and there are some. And start looking at their career pages. And you'll find, surprisingly, they are hiring tech people. They're often hiring tech people. And again, as I always recommend, yes, you could apply cold, but if you could work your network to find somebody who knows somebody and get a warm introduction to the hiring managers, that would be much better than just coming in cold. Much, much better. So you may have noticed that I named a few companies that aren't based in the U.S. and certainly not headquartered in the U.S. And that is the other thing that I tell people all the time, and I tell my clients, especially if they're struggling. Like if they are really struggling where they are trying to find a job, or they're a little fed up with what's happening in the local job market, look at other geographies. It is no secret. Those of you listening, if you're in the U.S., if you're not in the U.S., it's no secret that the U.S. is struggling right now. I get a message from my friends around the world almost every day saying, "Are you okay?" It's kind of scary what's happening. It's scary what's happening here in the country, and it's scary what we're doing, right? The activities that are happening due to this administration. So the political climate is a bit of a nightmare. The economy is bad. The unemployment numbers came out, the job market information came out. It's not good. It's one of the worst that we've seen in our lifetimes. I mean, for me, it is the worst I've seen in my lifetime. And I've been in the tech job market since 1993. I've been around a while. This is the worst. People are staying put, so they're not quitting. It's not opening up new positions, and companies are reluctant to hire. And so that combination just means that there are not very many new jobs. And so if you're looking, you're going to be struggling in the U.S. So start looking at companies that are based in countries with stronger economies right now. Look at countries that you admire their culture, you admire their political climate compared to what we're dealing with. They have a good kind of work-life balance. They treat their employees well. The way the companies behave is something that aligns with your values. So start building a list of companies in other countries that seem interesting for you. I have friends, family, clients that have relocated, left the U.S. to take jobs in other countries. Some have gone to Canada. Some have gone to South America. Some have gone to Germany, the Netherlands, you name it. There are people who have relocated, and they're pretty happy. They did it initially for a job, but they're pretty happy with the culture, and so they decide to stay. So look for that. Look for a country that looks like a decent place, that you like what the companies are like there, the culture. And look for companies that will probably appreciate your U.S. industry experience. So as I said, if you work in tech in the U.S., and especially if you work in one of the hubs, one of the centers of kind of tech innovation like Silicon Valley, and there's others, obviously. Companies that are looking for someone with that kind of experience are really going to like your resume. They're going to like your background. I have found, not 100% of the time, but almost like crazy, like 98% of the time, I was treated better by employers and by clients in other countries than in the US. They valued me and they valued my experience more. It is no secret that there is age discrimination in the tech industry in the US. No doubt about it. There is ageism in the US in general. But I've been in places around the world where they don't feel that way about older employees and people with experience. They value that. They see it as wisdom. They want to tap into it. And so I was seriously treated better and with more respect. And they valued what I had to bring to the table more. Kind of nice. It was a nice feeling. I also noticed that not every country, not every company, but they tend to have a better work-life balance than the U.S. tech companies for sure. The U.S. tech companies, especially in Silicon Valley, they burn people out, right? It's like, you've got to be a team player and you need to be available 24/7. We want you working nights and weekends. You should always be on call. You better be checking your email. And I had such a very different experience when I would work in other countries and other companies, very different than tech companies. And I was there sometimes for a long time. So this wasn't always, I'm dropping in for a week or the weekend. In one case, I was there in the country for like 4 months. So I really got to see how the team was operating and working. We'd often take long lunches. It's kind of the European lunch, right? So we'd have long lunches, team lunches, and laugh and get to know each other and then go back to work. And it always surprised the U.S. people that were there, my managers in particular, who were like, we want to work late. Well, everybody cleared out of the offices around 5 p.m. So they're like, nah, we're done for the day. You want to join us? We're going to go out for drinks. We're going to have dinner. It's going to be a whole night of it, right? You don't do that in the U.S. You better not leave. Your tech desk at 5 p.m. unless you want to be put on a layoff list or never get promoted, right? So the work-life balance is better, definitely. And you may be able to find a job, and I was looking, some of them were, that would let you work remotely. So if you have the right experience and the skills and you're considered to be very valuable, or especially if the role is just remote, you could have a job with one of these employers that's headquartered outside the U.S., but work remotely and just work from home. Or maybe they have a satellite office here. You never know. Or you may need to travel a bit. So I experienced this for sure. When I had a client that was outside the U.S., I traveled like once a month to go visit them and spend a few days in the office or like a week there. You may need to relocate. Sometimes that is what is on the table. And is that the worst thing right now? No one's saying it's forever, although some of the people I know, it became forever. Some relocated for a few years and then came back. So it's not a forever decision. And if that's what you need to do because you literally just cannot find a job in the U.S., then you do what you got to do. I mean, we've seen it. We've seen people come here from other countries to get a job. And so why is it so strange for us to go somewhere else and look for a job? Not the worst thing right now. So that kind of wraps that up. Look at other geographies. And then the final thing I want to suggest is consider going independent. So if you have been out of work for a while and you're really struggling to find a job in tech or in the US, you could go independent. Or if you're fed up, which some people are, I'm working with some people that are towards the end of their career and they're like, you know what, I kind of want to wrap this up. And I'm not ready to retire, but I'm really tired of working for someone else. So they want us to do some consulting and maybe do some contracting. And that's exactly what I did many years ago. I was at a startup that was acquired, and then the company that acquired us laid the entire company off. My entire startup got laid off. We were like, well, great. I had a family to support. I was the only source of income. So I was like, okay, I guess this is the time to dive into the deep end of the pool. And I had some friends that were doing it already, so that helped. I started consulting. And I had a client within 24, 48 hours that put me back to work, and I was making good money within a week. And that gave me a taste of it. And as you know, even though I'm a career coach and I'm working with people who are looking for jobs, I haven't had a job working for someone else since 2010. I got a taste of that freedom. I enjoy consulting. I've done some contracting. I like it. I like it a lot. And necessity is the mother of invention. So, like I said, if you're struggling or you're really fed up with everything, start looking into doing some consulting. It can often happen pretty quickly. I wrote an article about this for my Solopreneur newsletter. If you go to newsletter.invinciblesolopreneurs.com, I talked about how something much like that layoff can be an opportunity. It can be an opportunity. Companies often lay off too many employees. Looks good for the books. And then they realize, oh no, we do not have enough people to get the work done anymore. Or they did some layoffs thinking that automation was going to be the solution to their problems and AI could take over a lot of the workload. And then they discovered it didn't work. So they're rehiring. But they're often rehiring contractors and consultants. They don't want the cost associated with a full-time head. Because a fully loaded person comes with a lot, right? The benefits and health insurance, stock options, equipment, you name it. There's all kinds of stuff. And that doesn't come up when you're just a consultant or you're doing some contracting with them. So that's a third option, is that if you are trying to survive this year and the market's looking pretty bad, it might be time to be independent and do some consulting and find multiple clients. And when you add up all those income streams, it's enough to keep you on your feet and keep paying your bills. So if you want to talk more, I've done all of this and I've worked with clients who've done all of this. You can always schedule a complimentary call with me if you want to go to newsletter.invinciblecareer.com. It's pretty easy. There's a link at the top to book a free coaching call, and we can chat about it. Be happy to talk with you. Best of luck out there. It's going to be a rough year. Until next time, I wish you the best of luck in becoming an opportunity magnet for the best things in life.